Hello everybody, I'm Cassara, and today I'm going to be doing the most disappointing books of 2018. So these books are not all books that came out in 2018. Actually, for the most part, most of them came out before 2018, but they're books that I read for the first time in 2018. Also, most of these books aren't actually very bad. For the most part, they just didn't live up to my expectations of them or disappointed me in other ways, and it's completely okay for you to love a book even though I didn't like them. So the first book on this list is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie. This book is so hyped on BookTube. Everyone seems to love this book, and I just thought it was okay. I went into it expecting it to be a really great book, and I just had a really hard time getting through it. I still thought that the execution of it was really well done. For the most part, I liked the characters, but it was just a slow read to me, and I just wanted it to be fast-paced and engaging, and I wasn't really that engaged with it. The next book is The Diviners by Libba Bray. So I actually wasn't very sure about this book because I tend to not like scary books. I tend not to get scared of them when it's in a book. So I decided to get the audiobook for this because I was hoping that it would be scarier, but I just felt bored reading it. Also, it's set in 1920s New York, which I've never particularly liked the 1920s. I know tons of people love the 1920s and love reading about that era, but I've never particularly been interested in it, and I just wasn't that much interested in the characters, and it didn't feel scary to me at all, so that's why I just didn't enjoy it. The next book is probably the most disappointing book on this list for me because I just had the highest hopes for this book, and that is A Darker Shade of Magic by Schwab. This is the first book that I picked up because of BookTube. I was super excited to read this book. Schwab is such a beloved author on BookTube. I was a little worried about getting into YA after having not read YA in like 5 years. This is marketed as adult fantasy, and there are 4 Londons: Grey London, Red London, White London, and Black London, and the main character, Kel, is an Antari, which means he can travel between Londons. There's also an elemental magic system. All of these tropes are just like perfect for me. They're exactly what I would want in a book. It's also called A Darker Shade of Magic, so I expected it to get kind of dark. I love grimdark fantasy, and this was not at all what I was expecting. It does not read like an adult fantasy. It 100% reads like a YA fantasy, maybe a new adult fantasy if we're stretching it a little bit. I did not like the one female character in this book, Lila, I think her name is. I thought she was just very annoying and frustrating, and the magic system is just really underutilized. I didn't think the world building was even that good. So overall, not a very impressive book. I still ended up giving it 3 stars because I think the plot was pretty good. It didn't go as dark as I wanted it to, but I still think it worked well. I liked Kel as a character and I liked his family, but overall, it just was not what I was expecting at all. The next one is going to be kind of a controversial one because I have never seen anyone say bad things about this book, and that is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I can understand why people like this book. I completely understand it. Once you get past like the first little bit of it, this book is just a wild ride. There's so many twists and turns. Pierce Brown writes those twists and turns so well. A lot of them you don't see coming, but like if you go back, you can kind of see all the steps that led to those twists and turns. So the plot of this book is really well done. I also think the world building in this book is really well done because there are like different levels. The main character is a red. His name is Darrow, and there's like different ranks in between, and he is pretending to be a gold. Once we get to that point, I think this is a very good book. But before that, there is this scene basically where Darrow's wife, Io, sacrifices herself for basically a rebellion is what she's trying to start. So she's kind of trying to become a martyr. It is Darrow's like full motivation for doing what he does in this book. And I just did not buy that scene at all. It just didn't work for me. I feel like it was trying too hard to be the Hunger Games. It was taking like 2 scenes from the Hunger Games. One, the scene where Katniss sings to Rue after she dies, and the scene at the end of the Hunger Games where she suggests taking the berries, so basically committing suicide rather than killing each other to win the game. And it just felt like it was trying to put two scenes together and get the same emotional impact from this scene in the book as we do from the Hunger Games. And in the Hunger Games, I think it's really well done, and we get that emotional impact. In Red Rising, I didn't feel any emotional impact. I did not feel like Io and Daryl really had that much of a connection. When they described Io, it was always about how other people felt towards her and not how Daryl himself felt towards her or how she felt towards him. And I just felt like it didn't work, and the entire book is based off of that motivation that relies on that one scene, and it just didn't work for me. Also, Daryl as the main character really annoys me. I find him incredibly frustrating to read from, which is why I'm not going to continue reading on this book. But like I said, if you like really fast-paced plots, you might still really like this book. The next book on this list is Mask of Shadows by Linsey Miller. I did not really know what to think about going into this book. It is about Charlotte Leon, who is a gender-fluid main character. He or she is a thief, and they join a competition to become the Queen's assassin. So this has very much Throne of Glass flashbacks, and I didn't particularly like Throne of Glass, so I really wanted to see a book that does it better, and I honestly don't think this book did it better. I was also really intrigued by the idea of a gender-fluid main character, but I just didn't like the execution of it. It just didn't work for me. That being said, this does have an interesting plot. So there is another book coming out, I think either this year or next year, so I might pick that one up. The next book on this list is Carrie by Stephen King. This is the first book by Stephen King that I've ever read by him, and everyone talks about this movie all the time, so I was really hoping that I would love the book, but I just really didn't like the writing style. Everything like leading up to the ending, I didn't really like, but once we get to the prom, I really enjoyed it. That being said, I did really like the characters, but the writing style really annoyed me. I'm really hoping that it's just like his earlier writing style that annoys me, because I still really want to like Stephen King. The next book is from an author that I also really want to like, but haven't found a book yet that I like, and that is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I picked this up hoping that I would like this one more than the other book by him that I read, and I just felt nothing. It's an interesting story, it's well written, but I just felt nothing while I was reading the book, and I think it might be the fact that scary books don't really affect me that much, because I found out later that this is supposed to be like borderline horror, and I didn't even notice, so yeah. The next book on this list is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I know a lot of people will probably hate me for this one as well, because I love high fantasy, but this one was such a hard time to get through. Everyone's told me that I should read this one before the Lord of the Rings series because it's easier to get through. I completely disagree. This book just felt really boring to me. I felt like nothing happened in this book, and his writing style overall is not very good. I really don't like reading his writing style, but his stories are great, except for this one. I still really liked this world though, because it's fantastic. The last book on this list is Girl Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. So this is a self-help / memoir book, and Rachel Hollis is a lifestyle influencer. She owns her own company. This book is so popular. This book is one of the best-selling books on Amazon, all the time. I see it on the charts all the time, and I thought it was going to be amazing. So I was super excited for it, and I actually bought it rather than waiting for the audiobook to come in. I kind of wish that I had just waited for the audiobook though, because it definitely didn't live up to the hype for me. I think part of it is that I just wasn't the target audience for this book. It would make you seem like I'm the target audience because the title, Girl Wash Your Face, makes me think that it's for young working women in their 20s and early 30s. It kind of is, but I feel like it's more for young mothers, and I don't have children, and there's a pretty good chunk of this book that's devoted to raising children, and I just couldn't relate to it. So that's all I have for you guys today. Comment down below if you had similar opinions to me or if you completely disagree with me. I would love to have a discussion about it. Also, let me know some of the books that disappointed you last year. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!